Hi, we're the Infamy Fantasy Esports team. We're hosting fantasy esports contests for Fortnite and Apex Legends at infamy.gg, so go sign up and win. But today we're going to talk about franchising in esports and kind of the quick turnover of players and how teams and orgs can build their brands when they're kind of always changing their lineups and their rosters. So it makes it a little harder for teams to build or fans to build a connection with teams since usually your throughway is the players, and if the players are getting changed because of meta shifts, like the guy who was really good last year isn't going to be good this year, or just like all that, what they can do to kind of maintain a fan base, even if they're not maintaining a roster. So, what do you guys, any general thoughts on this?
I think it's a hard problem that everyone's gonna have to, or most of these teams are gonna have to realize. I think they're like starting to see the surface of it now with like what recently happened with Overwatch players and what's happening now with League. Um,
Yeah, there's like
it's
four original players from Overwatch League still on their
yeah,
season one team.
yeah, but it's you can't you like we talked about it a little bit in a previous video with Overwatch League and their players, how they want to do the players unions. You want to protect these players, but if they're not as good as they are, so what are you just gonna be hemorrhaging money, just trying to keep people satisfied? You know,
Yeah, I'm
it's
not really sure what the like goal. I know the goal is to protect the players, but then there's teams like Dallas Fuel that they signed their envious roster on 3-year contracts, and they couldn't even make it through season one while all being useful. And then you either have to ride it out where they're taking up a roster spot, or buy them out for a pretty penny. So I don't know. It's not like sports where if you're good at a sport, you've been playing it your whole life, you're probably gonna and you reach that pinnacle of competition, you're probably gonna be pretty good at it. But video games, the rules to basketball never change. Like things can change like that in gaming and esports. So really don't know who's going to be good from year to year. So longevity of these players' careers is hard to guarantee, and
yeah.
and it reflects on the orgs as well.
Maybe it just takes a readjustment because when you just said like the 3-year contract for Envy, it made me think like, what if these contracts were like 4 months? Like, the process of being a pro player or like for a season, the process of being a pro player is extensive and exhausting. You have to play for like 12 plus hours a day, training and this, that, and the other thing. But like, what the contract's 4 months, it may be more appealing to these players to be like, you know what, I'm not going to have to devote that much of my life, and it helps the teams also. So like when it's over, you can like
Four
plan better because when you have a
four
3-year
months?
contract or whatever a season is for whatever we're talking about, because like 3-year
Jesus
long
Christ.
contracts, how you can't really predict what's the game's going to be like in 3 years.
I mean, well, 3 years is just stupid unless you're like considered one of the greatest of all time or like clearly the best player in whatever scene you're in. It's just not viable
Mhm.
in basically any esport right now.
That's what happened like with Envy. They were the best coming into Overwatch League, or like one of the best. So they gave them a lot of the benefit of the doubt with a 3-year contract, but it quickly became this is not your grandpa's Overwatch anymore, and they couldn't keep up. So I don't know what do you do?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like you have a season long contract, maybe, and it
Yeah,
helps
but then
both
that makes
ends.
it hard to develop a relationship with your fans.
Yeah.
Like ideally you'd want someone that's going to be good for a long time. Like they signed Carpe for a
Mhm.
3-year contract, and even he's starting to
Hmm.
fall off a little. And they're using like Hisu more than him. And there's questions like should he start next year? Like he can go crazy, but it's not like
Yeah.
he's the
Guaranteed.
top talent.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
before he was like beyond reproach. He was like, oh no, like it's Carpe or you're just out, or like like
Mhm.
either you play Carpe's game or you're just like, you know what, I guess I'm just riding the bench. But now it's like, yeah, he's clearly how the game has just shifted away from like his super like a role or a play style that where he could just clearly excel at in the past. It's like not viable anymore. So it's like there's a lot more competition for those spots.
Yeah. And this like goes a little bit to something that I've talked about before with like I know you guys don't agree with it, but like localization, you have to like fix this problem of like revolving players. You have to like bring the power to the team as a whole, like whether that be like if you're from New York, you have like New York players or
It's
like
never
something
going to
along
work,
those
Darren.
lines. It's
You can explain it, but
it,
it's just
it,
I think it's just a
it's
horrible idea.
I mean, it's the only. How do you solve the problem then of like players going out and building up loyalty in your
If
team
you
and
want,
like your
not at the like the top level, like it works like in Europe on like the national regions, like the minor regions, and those are all like fodder systems into like the LEC. But if like you want the best players, it can never be like region locked on that small of a
Yeah,
scale. It's no
are you
one's gonna
gonna
want
are you gonna
that.
like the New York team? Are you gonna like the New
what,
York team when they're getting slapped left and right by everyone? But it's like, well,
bro?
at least I know that guy lives in
People,
Brooklyn.
people still watch the Mets, the Jets.
But that's comparing
Like,
sports to these IPs that are like
but
at best 10
but
years
that's what
old.
they're
Yeah,
So,
The Mets are
but
also
that's what
not
they're
the
from.
Mets are not all from New York or Philadelphia.
yeah.
I'm just saying like some kind of a localization of your team to where it's incorporated with the area it's from to get those people who are from that area to like your team. So that way
Well,
you have a
there's
and
ways
built in
around it.
a fan base.
You can integrate foreign players or from people from other states into like your city. Like NYXL at Overwatch League did a really good job of that. They did a bunch of videos or like meet and greets or something where
Mhm.
the New York team, they're all from Korea, but they like they made an effort to build a connection between New York, and it worked really well. They were one of like the most renowned brands, but now this year they've dropped everyone but Jonak because they were tired of coming in like third, fourth, fifth, and they couldn't really keep these old players around. And it's like, man, why am I a New York fan anymore if all the people I became a New York fan for are gone
Yeah,
now?
that's really what happened to me. I watched Overwatch League because of NYXL, and then that happened, and then I stopped watching Overwatch
I
League.
mean, fair, you stopped
It's
watching before that happened.
Yeah, this happened last week.
Yeah.
no, but like I mean, once the players that I like came into the league to watch, they started playing less. I was like, well, I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean it was because goats and
Well,
shit.
then
Yeah,
that
like the meta
It
exactly
became a
that
mess.
the meta changed, and then it's like, well,
if
the
those
people I want to
players
root
are on
for
a
don't even
different team,
play.
why didn't like would you watch that team their new team or would you just stick to New York no matter who's on their roster?
I I would probably follow the players.
Yeah, then that goes against your regionalization or localization idea. Like even now, like you look at Valorant, like people are already like, oh man, would the best teams in NA compete against the best teams in EU? There's always going to be that global like you know competition where people are clamoring for like, oh, who's the best? Like what region's the best? That's always gonna happen. You even see it in these brand new esports. So it's like slowly strict like restricting people to just NA or just New York is just not gonna work.
Yeah, and just like touching back on what I was saying, just to clarify, um, I followed NYXL because of the players, but what I'm saying is that you don't want people to follow your team for these players. You want to follow the team for localization reasons. Like I followed them for the wrong reasons, and once they stopped playing, I stopped following the league. That was my
But
whole
how do you
point on it.
cultivate that? Like you have to do it through the players, and
But
when
you
they
don't
rotate
have
out,
enough
it might
time
be
to do it.
difficult. That's
They
the
like
whole.
yeah, that's the problem.
I don't know. I think you get an inherent fan base from like, like if you have a Toronto team, this is the only Canada or Toronto team, like everyone from Toronto is gonna
Mhm.
like that team. So I think you get yourself a little like you're always gonna want to root for them, even if it's like you're not super your investment level will vary depending on how good the team is, if you like the players or not.
Mhm.
But you're always gonna have some inherent bias of like, oh, I'd like my home team
Yeah,
to.
rooting for the boys back
Hmm.
home. But I feel like it's maybe not that angle. Maybe it's how they cultivate players. Like they need if they promoted like the lower level leagues as well, and then they raised
So that
people
you
up
have like
there. Oh,
time investment
yeah,
in them.
it's more about like building them up and like having a story behind them instead of just like, all right, well now you're in the pro scene and you have no backstory, we don't know where you're from or like know anything about you, and they just try to plug the best players into the team. If there was some kind of league where you could have seen them in the background, like where they came from, it would be a lot easier to like have a story behind them because they would have inherent fan bases, and you would bring them to your home stand or whatever it is. I just
Yeah, it's
don't like.
definitely a big factor for the players that like people like team like they follow players' careers from the beginning of them and they see them grow up and that's like a big reason why people like them in the first place. Like, man, I remember Like there's that thing where like I discovered this band before anyone else did, and now
Yeah.
they're
Mhm.
huge, and you get like a giant EP because of it. So it's just like I've been backing this boy for years, and now he's made it, so I've made it. So it's a lot of that, but you can't always rely on the players because, like we're saying,
Yeah, no, I mean it definitely they rotate out quickly, but like to build your brand up, right? Like you got to have if you could have a wider revolving door, at least they would stay in the system a little bit longer. Like even if you have like a G2 like lower tier and you just promote like your best players or like a relegation where like the worst teams like maybe instead of like having like a minor league where they get relegated, so like if the older teams get relegated, at least you can still follow them. They're going to be in beat squad, but at least you can still watch them play as a whole.
The problem is like nobody watches any of these minor leagues across like anything.
Yeah,
That's
that's
like
that's that's what happened with Overwatch contenders.
no one watches contenders, no one watches academy, no one watches challenger league. Like there's no like viewership there, and so like once the problem with that is like the the sponsors would just back out, and then these teams would just collapse and fold because like
even the
what
scouts don't
sponsor?
watch contenders.
Yeah, even the scouts don't watch it. It's like so like say you're an investor and you put all your money into just put Team Liquid for as a case, even though this would never happen because they're one of the few orgs that are just like actually built a brand. Um, Say they're in a league, they get relegated, um, and then their sponsors are like, what the fuck? Like, I'm getting no value sponsoring your whatever, would say Clash Royale league team, and they get relegated. They would. Why would you stay in that league? Or why would you be a sponsor for them anymore? You would just pull out, and then like, all right, what's our best option? Gonna sell our boys for something. So, and then like your whole team just gets like split up, and then what? Like that won't work either.
You sell your boys for parts. Fuck.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
I
But
mean,
yeah,
that's what's happening in
I think
Siege
like
right now. Another team just backed out. Like the beginning of this month, E United backed out, and just this past week, Tempo Storm backed out. It's like that's like the problem with Siege right now is like they're doing like this half um, franchising system, and but it's like also there's still relegation. It's like so people are like this is kind of dumb. Like you pay a shit ton of money to get into it for a spot, but then you can still get relegated, and there's some like bullshit going on um, with how Ubisoft is handling it. So it's not a good look at all.
Yeah, I don't know. On the topic of relegation versus franchise, I think there's real benefits to both. Like especially with localization, if you franchise, it's like you'll always have some fans, like I was saying before, because of that's your city or whatever. But you have teams like the Boston Uprising or whatever, where they're just like just dragging down the level of competition every year, and relegation helps would just be like, all right, to contend, who do we have next for next year? Like
yeah. It definitely is like it's super hard to solve and like pinpoint where to go. It's like the chicken or the egg. Like what do you build up the players, then you sacrifice the brand. You build up the brand, then you sacrifice the connection to the players. Just
I think the key is really focusing on brand. Like, you can't control the players, who's going to be good, who's going to have a good year. Make your best guess, but you can control the relationship that you have as an org or a team with the fans, like events you host and shit, your social media presence. There's a lot of factors in your control that's like, oh, I like this team, like, build a good relationship.
mhm,
So and then it's like then I want to see them succeed instead of like you go for all right, we got all the best players. Now it's like, okay, you better succeed, or there's
mhm,
what reason am I a fan of you? And like, you can really only be like to be like one of the best teams, you have to be like top one or two. So it's either you build your team to take it all, and then if you don't, you crash and burn as a brand, or you build it to appease fans and get personalities and shit that you like.
mhm.
But they can't be bottom of the barrel either. You can't go
Yeah, but you
full
you also have to be
yard
good.
sale. Yeah, you have to be decent. You can't be atrocious.
Yeah, it's like with Toronto Defiant, they came in and they were just like we want to try to win, so we're gonna get whatever leftover like top Korean talent there is, and they did like okay, but not enough to be like love those Defiants. And then season 3 or whatever, they were like, okay, we're gonna go full Canadian boys. Our whole team is gonna be the best and biggest Canadian names, and they were like, bottom 5 or so pretty consistently. So it's like I don't really care if this guy lives in my zip code. He's not
He's
winning any
losing my
games. I don't want to watch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
What if you're the biggest fish in your pond? Like it doesn't work. Like Champions League, like no one watches it. There's no way around this, man. I'm like trying to think. Like, what if you went like the way of WWE, where you just like, yo, all right, NA is trash in most games. Like now we only play NA and we look like we're really good, but if we actually played anybody else in the rest of the world, we would get stomped.
Yeah, we get like it would be like reverse Olympics.
I mean, that's
Yeah, like,
exactly
does
what
the-
League is right now.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm like. What if you leaned into it? Like, what if you had like fucking heels and all this stuff, and it was like really entertaining for the fans, but like as far as competitive integrity, there isn't it. Like, what if you just started rigging games, and people were like, "Oh man, the storylines are off the fucking chain."
But esports is so random that you get that anyway. Like it's like what is happening?
The storyline is always off the chain.
That like the thing with that, it's like how long can you keep the gimmicks, interesting? Because
dude, the WWE, everybody, the cat is out of the bag for years, and they're still doing it. They're still
That's
doing
a soap opera. You can
But,
write whatever you want in a soap opera.
Think about it, like what's the WWE is for kids and adults that never grew out of it. So like esports is the same demographic. It's kids and old people that never grew out of it. So like, why don't we try that?
Because then people watch for the competitive integrity.
And, like, the competitive league could be a different one, but I'm talking about like if you were like
WWE,
like NA struggles in like a lot of games. I'm like, man, we gotta get some ROI here. Like, let's just try something different. And then all these problems, we can keep we can give them 3-year contracts.
Wow.
As long as they take dives real good.
Another interesting. Do you have something to say on this WWE point?
I don't think that wouldn't work. No, definitely not.
No, but that'd be fun to have like a separate, just like all for the lulls. But,
yeah, like drama, total drama esports.
Well, isn't that just what all-star games are at a point?
Yeah, every game's an all-star game.
Twitch rivals.
We're all stars. True. But I was interested. I was just reading I think it was an article by Yiska for the Overwatch League that they're considering, since they're probably still gonna have to stay region locked, and there's only gonna be like the 4 Chinese teams and the 1 Korean team over in the APAC region for the tournament, and they still want to have tournaments like every month or so. They're talking about bringing up like one Korean contenders team, 1 Chinese contenders team, and 1 wild card to participate in the tournament. So it's like an opportunity to shame a like professional team, like as a tier 2 team.
That's real. And like Fortnite kind of has something like that, like a wild card system. Like since like lobbies are, I believe they get 32 teams through qualifications, and then they have 1 extra team in trios. That's a wild card team, so that you play 1 game, and whoever wins that 1 game is sent to finals. Which is the wild card game was more intense than the entire FNCS of last season.
Yeah, wildcards are just a way of like instilling those like WWE storylines. Like this guy doesn't deserve to be here, but he's here. He fought his way out of the bottom.
It was crazy. It was on Halloween. The kid they qualified through wild card, completely random team, and then like their 3rd game in out of 6 games, one of the kids, he quits and he goes. It was on Halloween. He quits and goes trick or treating, and his boy just like rages out, and he's like, "What do you mean you're going trick or treating?" Amazing. Like after all that, you won the 1 game it took to qualify, and then your boy leaves to go trick or treating.
Why are
There's
you
the
going trick or
storyline.
treating in the middle of a pandemic?
Because he got killed and he was mad, so he was like, you know, I'm not.
Oh man,
I'm done.
is he? He's a real man. He's immune.
Yeah, he was immune.
I'm taking
my
my pillowcase and I'm going trick or treat. Fuck this game.
This game.
Um,
He did it.
Yeah. And where is he now?
Where is he now? No one will ever play with that. That kid has been blacklisted. No one will ever play with him ever again.
Yeah, good job.
Damn.
Wow. But there's also just I just love that like mechanics like that to make it more interesting is just like playing tournaments or just wild card tournaments for just like that last spot just like and then it just builds the storyline for a potential Cinderella run, which is just always fun to watch. But back to what we were talking about, like what any techniques outside of players that you guys think of, like how brands can build relationships with fans?
Winning.
That would be players.
That's
no?
like adjacent to players,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. That's like the only thing that most orgs
Like-
have is just like I'm just trying to win. That's like,
Either you win.
says the uprising fan.
I know.
That's enough, like localization, but
It's
being
hard.
existing somewhere.
I mean, outside of just like giving away free shit to the fans and like events, like you said, they're really.
Being savage on social media, that's good. That's a.
But then you like there are going to be
cost-effective
some
way.
people who like your feelings. The feelings are wow. Their feelings are going to get hurt.
No,
You're
to
gonna
other
return-
teams.
Oh, to other teams, yeah.
Not just verbally
I
bitch
was
slapping.
just, I was just like, yeah,
Twitter.
like, fuck. Some people are gonna be mad about that one.
Yeah, 'cause,
What?
yeah,
that
there's
just
always
means that
drama with it.
they care. Fuck them. That's better than
Yeah,
them
become the
having
heel.
no reaction. So
At least they're talking about me.
Yeah,
But
I think it's just mainly like events to get the fans involved or like some kind of interactive.
yeah, like content creation, I guess, which usually stems from the players, but
Mhm.
giveaways and stuff, yeah. I don't know.
And that's like
but,
this like brings in another problem with esports, which we might be able to talk about in another video. But like, it makes it hard to like stay involved. Like you stop watching for a little bit. Like life happens, you don't watch for as long, and then your favorite team is like, what? Like what happened to Team Liquid? You know, just it makes it hard to just like continue being a fan as well.
yeah, there's like a copy pasta about that where it's just like I just woke up from my like 2-year coma. Can't wait to see my favorite envious boys win the Overwatch League season 1. Like, oh.
Oh. Yeah. So it just makes it so that you have to be like in the shit to know what's
Yeah, but that's a lot of like, this is the audience that it is.
Very
Like gamers,
adventure-y.
they love to be
yeah.
deep in the shit and have the knowledge that being able to tell like new fans like, oh, you didn't know this and that happened. Like you're not a real fan. I'm a real fan,
Mhm.
and that just like builds this connection stronger. But a big thing is also like when you inevitably have to get rid of these players, like just send them off right. Just bring them to the out behind the shed and give them a nice dog treat before you shoot them, I guess, because
Yeah.
like
Give
fans
'em
will
a
remember
huge-
that.
Yeah, like some kind of like send off because like I know a lot
Fanfare.
of teams just do like it was great to have you. They like make a social media post about it, but like what does that really like?
The bare minimum is the highlight reel, just
Yeah.
unless they were so bad that you couldn't throw together a.
Like, do
or
you have a
worse, just
banger
like
for them? Like, what do you mean? What do you
How about what?
like? Do you have a banger for them? Like, what do you mean? Like,
Have
who's gonna care?
the fans, the fans. You know,
The fans
they
are
were
just
like trying
playing
to
that they're.
that you're just like shafting for one reason or another, whether they're leaving or you don't want them on your team anymore.
Or just because they're not as good, right? Like, it's not-
No, sometimes players leave because you don't have enough money to pay them. Like if someone gives you a sweeter offer.
That's interesting too. Like you see the influx, like in NA specifically, like of foreign talent coming in, even from just EU in certain games, just because of salaries.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to suck for the EU teams. And
yeah.
do you think like the Asian teams too, or do they like, yeah, get that NA money?
It depends on like on the player by player basis. If someone's like, oh, I'm just going to NA for cash grab. I don't have to try as hard because the region's not as good for whatever reason, or if it's like you're going under the right circumstances where the whole C9 thing, like he's going there to win, and potentially, or the expectations there is to like raise NA out of the shit, essentially. But the thing is, like, but he also is getting a shit ton of money for it, and the way for like orgs to stay afloat in like COVID times, like kind of what C9 has been doing the past few years is like building up local talent and then selling them off, or promoting them to their roster when opportunities arises. And so like they traded away 3 players to FlyQuest, used that money along with like just investor money to get perks over here. So
Yeah.
Trade.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like LeBron leaving Cleveland for Miami. It's like I feel like the Cleveland like he tried to get them he tried to carry them to a championship like
Mhm.
by himself, but then it's like I feel like they would have understood if he's like, guys, I want to win. Like I know like
yeah,
I'm from here, like I love you all, but he was like such a pompous ass about it. Like I'm taking my talents to South Beach and I'm gonna grab some actually good teammates and win this shit. So
I mean
Yeah.
it's a little different since it's a
the
player,
if
not an org, but.
yeah, you take Ray Bork as an example, the same thing with that, but he did it in a classy. It was like people actually, encouraged him to leave.
I want you to win.
Yeah, no. So for those who don't know, Ray Bork was like it's like a Hall of Famer in the NHL. He was on the Bruins for like his whole career essentially until his last year, where they've never won. Bruins were always like utter trash in the 90s. And so then he got traded to the Avalanche in Colorado, where he won. And so like the image of him lifting the cup is like a really iconic moment and like a historical moment in hockey because like he's considered one of the greatest of all time. And finally winning a cup, and like people in Boston didn't like weren't upset that he left. Like they're sad that he's gone, but they're also super happy that he finally won it because of just like the player he was and how he exited and such. So
So
But like that
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
also
loyalty was built up by just like he was on the team for so long, but then you can't even like recreate that in
no,
esports.
you can't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
There's a few key cases like the NYXL just got rid of Sabioli and people want him on every team because they just like him as a personality and they'd love to see him like win somewhere else. But and then also Super on the San Francisco Shock, his contract's up, and there's talks of like him going to like Houston, which would be like kind of sad, but they'd probably pay him a bunch of money, but to be on like a shitty team,
I think
or
Super
is
would.
part of his like brand just winning.
I feel
What?
yeah,
Super should just take a pay cut if needed and just stay on the Shock. To be real.
Yeah, because it's like hard for him to talk all that shit he talks when you're on the fucking Houston Outlaws. So. But he also
yeah.
might go to like Gladiators, which are building a pretty good team. He has a lot of friends there. So, but yeah, it's hard for these teams to be like, well, these are the face of our brands, but if we can win without you, we will, and we can save some money.
I think it's kind of on the teams too. Not that it's their fault or like they're doing anything wrong with what they're doing, but like they build their brands around like these players, like how they like they're like super like just like likable player. They have him everywhere for San Francisco Shock. Like uh Sentinels did it with Booga. They had him on like fucking Jimmy Fallon and like stuff like that. They like associate their brands with these players and then when they like get rid of them. So it's kind of on the brand
Well,
also for
they've been
like
winning, so that it's easy to promote them
yeah.
when you're winning. But the thing with
Yeah,
Super,
but
Yeah,
you
where
I
take
think
like
winning.
but the thing with Super is like they worked him into their system like when he was super young and before he could even play the year one of OWL, and like they were working on him to craft him into a top tier player. Where a lot of teams is like, oh, you got to win right now, and a lot of fans are like, if my team isn't winning, then they're shit. So it's like, it's kind of like both sides need to like, sometimes we're not going to be the best, and if like this is a rebuilding year, you gotta sometimes just accept that and like to win down the road. So
Yeah, and I think winning kind of trumps everything because it's like you build a legacy, and it's like okay, even if that player leaves, it's like well they brought us the W like this year, so we have to be like fans can't be that mad at it. Like this team knows what they're doing, so you're gonna have more faith in them if they have a proven track record.
Mm-hmm.
All right, final thoughts on dude. I don't this is all over the place, but who knows what this title will be, but.
WWE franchises.
I just want to see
WWE Sports.
Swanton bomb somebody off a chair.
I want to
You're muted again.
I want a chair thrown.
Chair
Yeah, Blake gets no final
right,
thoughts.
right when the kid's about to hit the like crucial headshot, someone comes in out of left field with the chair batches. And he misses. It's super with the chair. When did he get up? His tank character is still playing.
He has the water bottle pressed on the mouse one button.
I've never seen anything like this. Yeah. But no, it's in all seriousness, it's a serious problem, and a lot of I'm sure like top tier teams are aware of this, just like the connection between fans and their team as a whole and how crucial it is to what people perceive them as. So I think they just like they can do like little things like send offs, like you said, to just make it seem more genuine when people leave, to like ease the burden.
I think what they really need to do is just like stay away from like the negative press, where it's just like if a team becomes like known for like treating their
Holy shit,
players
Blake.
like shit, like Vancouver Titans this past year of Overwatch League, like they had beef with the Korean players. They're like, you need to live in Canada or some shit like that. Like you need to come to all of our hockey because it's like the same people that own the Canucks. It's like you need to come to all of our hockey games and do all this shit, and they were like, no.
No.
So it just like that hurts you for future players and fans. We're just like, I don't want my favorite player to go to this team because they're gonna treat him like shit. So if you can at least like keep your head above water and like have a respectable reputation, that's something.
Yeah.
Anything, Jake?
I mean, with them, like they also signed a contract, so they should have thoroughly been like, okay, there's got to be some more due diligence. I don't know, not gonna speak for them, but if they're obligated to do something,
Yeah, these 18, 19-year-olds just want their signing bonus.
so
They don't care what they're signing.
I mean, yeah, but I think the just the consensus of like these the lifespan of pros just being so short is just inherent in the space, and you got to stop comparing it to traditional sports where there's a much more longevity in general for players, and so it's like weird. It's like, do you want to have the veteran who's been on his sixth season but never going to get better, or are you going to take a risk on some newer, younger talent? So it's I think there's got to be more risk taking. But you got to you got to put
Yeah, but
yourself
that's like
into
the worst when
position.
it blows up in your face.
But that's the thing. Like
It's
you
like
gotta,
the worst when you're
you
like,
have,
I
you have to be able to like, you need to put yourself in a position where even if the risk or that play doesn't work out at all, just blows up, that you won't like go under for it. Like so, there's like a lot of like ground level infrastructure that you got to do beforehand. Where I feel like a lot of teams are just jumping right in, trying to grasp like basically hot dropping into whatever scene they're going into and trying to grab that win early on, where if they just waited and just like slowly grinded out, it would work better in the long run. So
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just one more thing with Jake talking about veterans, like just like what if these teams had some way of just integrating the players slowly into another position? Not everyone obviously can do this, but like coaching positions, I know some teams do that, but just like realizing that maybe you might not be the best, you're a 6-month veteran like Jake said, but like you might have game knowledge to teach this newer player, you know.
Yeah.
And that can be a way of
69,
finding
the new GM of Houston Outlaws.
Maybe not GM, assistant coach.
That's usually the route they go, but yeah, he's the GM. Good for him. Way to hustle. But I think a big part is I think coaching is like a large part. Like I don't think you necessarily need to trash these veterans like as soon as they like as quickly as the turnover is. Like I think if you work with them right, you can get as much out of them as
Yeah.
possible, and then
Even like
not upset
tiny,
fans.
even tiny things like just like how to relieve mental stress. Like they've obviously been through it and be like, bro, do this. That's like huge. All these teams are talking about, oh, the psychological implications of being a pro. Like have
Yeah,
them talk
especially
to
so
someone who's
young.
done it. Yeah, just like, bro, you should do this. Help them with schedules, regimens, just little things that they
Yeah,
might not be able to figure out for themselves.
get them in the gym. Put
Yeah.
the Coke can down. But yeah, we are the Infamy Fantasy Sports team, and we're hosting fantasy sports contests at infamy.gg. Go sign up, and we'll see you next time.